Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kat, and today I'm doing my 2020 stats and my 2021 plans together. So concerning my 2020 stats, I do track every single book that I read and many stats about the book and the author and the publication, etc. I have my stats split into two parts: stats that I don't care about, that have no bearing on what books I'm picking up. So they're just fun stats like length of book and so on. We'll do those first, just fun ones, and then stats that I actively care about, and some of them are better than others, so I'll get into that. And then the third part of this video is using those stats that I do care about from 2020. I'm going to make my 2021 reading goals, and then I've made a checklist and I will see if I can reach them in 2021. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. We're gonna start off with the ratings that I don't care about really. They're just fun to look at. So let's do stars first. So I'm gonna scoochie over here and put the pictures here. So first off, I guess the number of books I read. I read 175 books in 2020. I wish I had kept track of how many DNFs I read, but there is also a lot. If I'm not feeling a book, then I do just DNF it. I don't feel bad about it. But yeah, I read 175 books in 2020. That's a lot. I'm blaming it on being quarantined in the house. So let's get into star ratings. These are the star ratings. As you can see, I had a pretty good year. I read the most 4 stars, and then 3.5 to 3. I say 3 to 4 is where I usually fall for books. 1.5 and 2 is so low, and 2.5 because the books that I actually read all the way through that are that lowly rated, I'm reading them for a reason. Usually I want to see the ending, or a lot of people really loved it and I'm wondering what the hype is about, because normally I would just DNF them and like say lovey with that. Yeah, and then I'm not surprised that I have almost no 5 stars. I am super stingy with my 5s, so not surprised there. Let's move on to age demographic. Again, I'm not surprised at all. I read about 80% adult, 20% young adult, and middle grade I only read 1 book, which on the graph it says it's 0%, so yay me. I don't really care to change this. The only time I read middle grade is like if it's for a readathon challenge usually. I prefer to just read adult books. I think I'm getting a little old for YA. Like, it's very rare that YA gets a high rating for me, personally, because I often see like where the plot is going or the writing is a bit juvenile. Not to say there are not some YA amazing writers out there, like Tiffany D. Jackson just breaks my heart all the time. So I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying for me, I think I'm moving more toward the adult side of things. For release year, it's actually funny, I read 25% 2020 releases and I read 75% backlist. So I feel like that's pretty good. Again, I don't care at all. I'm just, this is just some interesting facts that I didn't know about my reading tastes. Book length. I am again not surprised. I don't really like to read super long books. Personally, my ideal book is between 200 and 400 pages, because I think under 200 often plot and characters aren't developed fully enough. And then of course over 400 pages, I want to really make sure that that's like a really good book, like a banger that I know is gonna be worth my time. I know what the 500 and the 600s are. They are all Jennifer L. Armentrout books. I think all 4 of them are Armentrout books. So I'm not surprised because I'm absolute trash for her. And yes, her books are long, but I think they're so worth it. Okay, let's get into the type of books now. So 90% novels, then 5% illustrated. I do like illustrated. They're just really expensive for how fast I read them. So normally I would check them out from the library or buy them occasionally. Like I did get Destroyer this year, which was awesome. But yeah, I read it in like 10 minutes. I also did read some poetry collections, short story collections, and essay collections. But majority, I prefer novels. That's just how it is. And the last one in this section of stats I don't really care about is format. So I read 53% ebook, 45% physical, and 2% audiobook. This year I listen to 3 audiobooks, and those are my only 3 audiobooks I've ever listened to. So this was the year that I started audiobooks, and it was pretty cool. I think the ebook thing is so high because for the large part of 2020, the libraries were closed. Usually I read way more physical books, but wasn't an option for a lot of this year because of the Rona. So now let's get into the stats that I really do care about and that I have been actively trying to shift one way or the other. So let's get into queer diversity, LGBT rep. So 33% of my books had queer rep in the book. This means that on the Goodreads shelf, it is shelved as queer or LGBT, and I read 67% straight. I would love to see more queer rep, but I will get into the exact numbers at the end when I make my 2021 goals. But yeah, just let it be known, I'm pretty pleased with the 3rd queer, but ideally, I would like it to be even higher. Let's do racial diversity next. So I read 44% BIPOC authors, 55% white authors, and 1% unknown, where I just, for the life of me, couldn't find out about the author. Usually these are self-published romances where not a lot is known. They don't have like social pages. Yeah, so this one bothers me because I was really hoping to read more BIPOC authors than white authors, and it just ended up at the end of the year, a whole bunch of my books were white, and I'm a little mad about it, but you'll see later in my goals that I definitely want to read more BIPOC than 44%. I want to always be improving on that front. Let's do gender. So 73% female, 22% male, and I don't really care about those stats. I'm always going to read more women. I just can't stand male gaze. Like I hate it so much. So the male-female numbers don't really bother me. But what I actively tried to do this year is read intentionally non-binary authors. So I did read 7 non-binary authors, which was 4. And then obviously there's some poetry collections or essay collections where there's multiple authors. So I just have that as a separate category. So next year I will absolutely be trying to increase the number of non-binary authors I read. I want to read more than I read this year. So that's what's most interesting to me on this pie chart. So next is one that I am pretty proud of, if I do say so myself. So this is the country breakdown. And one of the things that I really try to do is read from outside of the US and the UK. That was my goal for 2020, to read more outside of the US and the UK. And so I did read 61% US, which is bad, like in my opinion, because if you don't know why I feel this way, I will leave a video I did a long time ago about the publishing industry. Basically, the US and the UK dominate the publishing industry, and they make it very difficult for other books to be heard and to be, spread and loved. So I'm trying to decrease the US and the UK, but especially the US. So the other countries I read: Australia, 5%, Japan, 4%, Canada, 3%, South Korea, 2%, Argentina, 2%. You know what? Argentina has some great writers right now. Definitely check Argentina out, as well as Nigeria, 2%. Nigeria has amazing stuff right now. New Zealand, Ireland, Mexico, Italy, India, Belgium, Jamaica, Sweden, Cuba, Finland. Like, I read from a lot of countries this year, but I can always improve, and I definitely want to get that stupid US number down. 61% of my books were from one country. That's just annoying, and it's just annoying to me. So you'll see my goals, that needs to be fixed. Another important thing to me is to try and read books that are translated. So I read 87% English, but 13% translation, I think, which I ended up reading, I think it's 20 translated books. That's pretty good in my opinion. I always want to improve this number, but I'm quite proud of it because I did try really hard to seek out translated works and make sure that I'm reading them. I know that you really love when I bring translated books to your attention, but not only is it harder for me to find translated books, but then when I read them, a lot of them don't make my best books or recommended books videos because some of them are bad. Like, frankly, they're just bad. So just like any other book genre or any other book demographic, like non-binary authors, not all books by non-binary authors are great. They're not. Not all books with pansexual main characters are great. They're not. So like, I read them and then I'm like, oh, I don't want to recommend it. So same thing with translated. So I have tried to read a lot of translated and not all of them make the cut, but I am trying to read more so that I can find more gems, because that's how it works. And the last stat that I want to explain is the genre breakdown. So I think this is very telling of the year 2020 was, and that we all had and we like were living through, because the biggest genre that I read was romance, 27% romance. That has never happened before. Never happened before. So romance was my biggest at 27. Fiction was 22. Fiction is usually one of my biggest, if not the biggest. Fantasy at 20%, horror at 9%, then mystery thriller, then dystopia, then nonfiction, then sci-fi, then poetry, then memoir, then historical fiction and humor. So the only thing I'm going to say about this is that I don't really care about the breakdowns at all. Other than that, I want romance to be lower than it was. I don't want romance to be 27% again. And it's not that I don't think romance is good. Obviously, I really like romance. It's that when I'm really stressed, I always turn to romance books. And I'm reading them because I just want to read something, but I don't really want to think about the plot. So I end up reading books that I rate like 2 or 3. I read them and then I forget about them. They're just a waste of my like reading time. I think instead maybe I should try to read, I don't know, other books that are similarly light, like maybe some middle grade, maybe some graphic novels, maybe some YA fantasy or YA sci-fi. I really love YA fantasy and YA sci-fi, and I do have them on my shelves. So maybe instead of romance, like one of those instead. But okay, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into my 2021 reading goals. So let me just explain it a little. So the focus on the left, and then 2020 is what my stats were for the year. And then there's 2021 low, which I think I can achieve. And then 2021 reach, which is like my dream stat. Like if I make that, I'll be like, wow, good on ya, good on me, great job. So first up, I want to increase queer rep, LGBT rep from 33% up to 40%, and my dream would to be 50, because 33 was with me not actively trying to seek out queer books. It just so happens that what I picked up happened to be 33, so I think if I actively try, I could get it to 40 or 50. As well as I want to increase the number of non-binary authors that I am reading. I read 7 this year, and that was 4%, so I would like to read 5%, and then my reach is 6%. It all depends on how many books I read, but yeah, I'm hoping to increase that. BIPOC authors, I read 43%, which is actually 75 books from BIPOC authors. That's no small number at all, but I think it would be easy enough for me to do 45%, and then of course I would love to split right down the middle, 50% BIPOC and 50% other. Of course, over 50 would be amazing, but I'm trying not to stress myself out too bad, because finding all of these intersections means like it's sometimes very hard to pick a book, and then I just end up reading a romance. Like that's kind of how it goes. Like I'll be paralyzed, like I don't know what to read to like help my stats, and then I just pick a romance. But that's an interesting discussion about how people choose books. I watched a very interesting live show about diversity, which had a bunch of very intelligent creators talking about this issue and about if you should actively choose or if you should let your statistics guide you. And they all have different opinions. Let me know what you think down below. For me personally, when I have had it in the back of my mind, like, oh, I should try to do that, it really doesn't work, because I think I'm doing it and then I'm not doing it. So I need numbers, and I need to be like, and I organize my TBR shelves by certain areas that I'm trying to improve. I have labels for things. If you ever want to see that, let me know. I'd be glad to show you in our new house. And Anyway, back to this. So the next goal that I have is to read more translations. I don't think that's a surprise. I'd love to get to 15 or 20%. That would be awesome. And then the one that I think is going to be particularly the hardest is to reduce USA published books. I read 61% from the US last year, and I would really like to get it under 50%. My goal is to get it under to 50% because isn't it just outrageous that the US specifically dominates so much of publishing? Originally, I didn't want to read from the UK or the US, but when I did the breakdown, I realized, actually, reading from England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, like those countries are nowhere near as much as the US. The US is a like crazy high number. That is 61% of my reading. Like that is unacceptable to me that one country would be so high. So this is the hardest one I'm setting for myself. I want to get it down to 40% and my reach is 30%. That would be only 1 in 3, which sounds like easy, but you don't know how many of the books are originally published in America until you actually start tracking it. It is a lot. And then, of course, I want to read less romance. So I read 27% romance, and I would like to try and redirect my anxiety reading towards other things that are possibly lighter. Like I said, like illustrated, manga, maybe some audiobooks, or maybe some middle grade or YA, and get it down to 20 or 15. I'm not going to say none because I love romance, so I do want to read some romance. And then the last goal is to read my 21 in 2021. I recently filmed this. I don't think it's up yet. It will be up probably by the time you're watching this, but it's 21 books I have on my physical TBR shelves. So I physically have them. There's nothing stopping me from reading them. And in fact, some of them I even put in my January TBR. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3 or 4 of them are actually in my January TBR. So my low is to read half of the ones I said I was going to read, 11 out of 21. And my reach is to read all 21 out of 21. That would be amazing. So those are all my goals. And I just wanted to make this reading goals so that I can reference it at the end of 2021 and see if I did it or if I was a complete slacker. So wish me luck and let me know what goals you are striving for in 2021. And yeah, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up or hit the subscribe. That would be amazing. And I will chat to you in another video soon. Bye!